Time Leaper Dragon, or Time Reaper Dragon, or whatever Bushiroad is calling it nowadays. Time Leaper Dragon is finally revealed, so let's take a look if this card is going to change gears for the better, or does absolutely nothing.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we finally have the day where we see the brand new cards for Gear Chronicle for the upcoming CLAN SELECTION PLUS Vol.1 set. And two of those cards were already revealed for the card of the days, like we've seen with the gold paneling cards with Vortimer, but in today's livestream event we saw the grand reveal of the brand new grade 4 unit, yes it's a grade 4, Interdimensional Dragon, Time Leaper Dragon, as Bushiroad has come back after renaming it to Time Reaper, and we have to wait and see if they're going to stick to their guns with this one or they're going to change it back before they're going to print the card. But who knows, maybe they're going to make a print error and still print Time Reaper Dragon on the card. But with all jokes aside, let's jump straight into these new cards and see what this new wave of support for Gear Chronicle might mean for the clan right now, or for its future. So first off, let's take a look at the brand new grade 1, which is Lost Gear Dog 8. And this card is pretty interesting as it's very similar to what we've seen in the past, because its skill is Auto Vanguard the Rigid Circle. When placed from hand, costs reveal a grade 3 or greater card from your hand, search your deck for up to one grade 3 card, reveal it and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck. And if you put a card into your hand, choose one or more cards with the sum of their grades being 3 or greater from your hand and discard them. And it also has the skill continues in hand. When this card will be discarded, it may be discarded as a grade 3. So for anybody that has played during the G era, this is basically a new version of the Stride Fodders. So, and I'm not referring to the Grade 3 Searcher Stride Fodders reprints that we've got in this year for the VU series. No, I'm actually meaning the old Stride Fodders, as it works basically the same as they do. Only in this case, it is a bit more flexible and a bit better than they are, because it allows you to reveal any grade 3 or greater, so it considers as with the grade 4 card for Gear Chronicle, but also it allows you to search out any grade 3. As you probably are aware, or you might not know, the old Stride Fodders only allowed you to search a specific archetype boss unit or a specific card with a certain name. And it can also be discarded as a grade 3, which means it can be used for the stride skill mechanic or the actual stride skill mechanic in premium, which makes it a bit more flexible in both formats. But it also has some synergies with the current support, because if you combine this with Smoke Gear Dragon, it basically allows you to reveal a card and then discard any card from your hand as it's still grade 3. Granted, you need to be on Jet Dragon, so that means you already are at your grade 3, but at the very least it has that little synergy. Now, of course, the question does arise, is this better than Steam Breath Dragon? Because that also allows you to search a specific grade 3 in the top 5 cards. Now, there is a difference between the two. The generic grade 3 searcher allows you to search any grade 3 from the top 5 without needing to reveal something. So if you don't have a grade 3 or grade 4 in your hand, you can add it to your hand, thus increasing consistency. But the problem is you still are reliant on that grade 3 being in the top 5, and seeing as Gear Chronicle only runs 4 grade 3s in most cases, it's very unlikely that there is a grade 3 in those top 5, and that results in Steam Breath Dragon actually whiffing a lot of the time. Now, with Lost Gear Dog, you only need to have one in your hand, which can happen because if you take in consideration all the grade 4s you're gonna run, it's pretty likely that you will have one of the grade 3s or grade 4s in your hand before you need to ride to grade 3, and then you can utilize this card to then search out any of the grade 3s that you need, like Chronofang or Chronojet or whatever. So it's a nice consistency bump to the engine. It's not something significantly better, because there's still reason to either choose this card or Steam Breath Dragon, but it's an extra addition to the grade lineup that we have for Gear Chronicle. Now for the new grade 2 that we've got in this set, we've got Steam Gunner Zeit, and Zeit has the abilities Auto Vanguard the Rigid Circle. When placed, cost Soul 1 and discard a card from your hand. Draw a card, choose one of your opponent's rear guard with grade less than or equal to the card discarded from your hand for this cost, and retire it. And it also has the ability Auto Rigid Circle when it attacks. If you rode a grade 4 until this turn, Soul Charge 1. So this card basically is a cycle engine, because you discard a card and you draw a card. It also has the ability to retire something from your opponent's side of the field depending on what you discard. And on top of it, it is also a Soul Charge engine which can compensate for its first skill, but if you can utilize it at least 2 times in a game, it generates more soul than it utilizes. Now, this might sound like a very useful card, but it's something we already have in Gear Chronicle to some extent. It's basically a different version of Stroboscope Dragon, because Stroboscope Dragon also allows you to Soul Blast a card, discard a card, to then snipe one of your opponent's units and then draw the card. The only difference is that Stroboscope Dragon doesn't care for what you discard, so you will always snipe whatever you want. But the issue with that one is that it needs to attack and you need to be on grade 4 to get the draw back, so it's very late game. In Zeit's case, you get that draw no matter what in whatever you are sitting on. But on top of it, Zeit also allows you to Soul Charge the card, which compensates for the cost that you utilize for using its skill, so it might be a bit more effective. The only difference is you can only use it once per copy, where Stroboscope Dragon can keep sniping units every time that it attacks. Now, is it a good upset to Stroboscope Dragon? Not really, because in most cases, it doesn't last long on the field and will just be removed anyways. So, honestly, Zeit is basically a better Stroboscope Dragon, as it allows you to get that cycle in the early game where probably it's most important, because you want to get to your grade 3 as consistently as possible, and the cycle once you already are in grade 4 is probably less important because you are already at your grade 4 stage. So Zeit is actually a pretty nice card, and it does synergize with some combo potential, what we can expect with the new Timeleap Dragon. That stated, let's take a look at Interdimensional Dragon, Timeleap Dragon. So here we have the new grade 4 and a new boss unit for Gear Chronicle, which is Interdimensional Dragon, Timeleap Dragon. And its name suggests something very specifically, and we can expect that that's also going to happen in this V series, because Timeleap Dragon's skill is Auto Vanguard Circle. When it attacks a Vanguard cost, put a rearguard on the bottom of your deck, search your deck for up to 1 card with grade equal to the card put on the bottom of your deck for this cost grade +1, call to the rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and that unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. So basically, on attack, it allows you to put a unit on the bottom of your deck and then search out a card with 1 grade higher than that card and call to the rearguard circle. So it's basically Timeleap in standard. This is effectively Metallica's Phoenix original skill of the Stride version, but then printed on the grade 4 main deck card. It's exactly the same synergy as how it works and how it functions, only now reworked in a more standard package. Now, this does give Gear Chronicle access to inherent multitasking, as it always allows you to generate 4 attacks, but it's not really that great if you think about the current day's format for Vanguard, because we're a Force Clan and we get access to 4 attacks. But every other Force Clan probably already get access to 5 attacks or very strong 4 attacks. Gear Chronicle doesn't really have that, because if you go into this thing, you have 1 Force marker for your grade 3 turn, and then the Superior Cult unit gets an extra 10k power, so maybe it can be a 33k attacker if you call a grade 3, but that means all your other columns are pretty weak, because as we've seen as the 2 cards we just discussed, they didn't get any power. They're just a 10k unit and an 8k unit, and that's about it. And most cards in Gear Chronicle on the rearguard department don't really get a lot of power, so their attacks are pretty damn weak. Now granted, you could extend this a little bit with the new grade 2 Zeit, because what you can do is Timeleap a grade 1, then you can Timeleap into Zeit, and then its on-place effect will activate. You discard a card, which then utilizes its cycle skill and potential snipe skill. But if you discard the new promo, which will be included in this set, which is Ribble, then you can immediately use her skill to recall herself to the other side of the column and then turn herself into a 13k unit, and you have 2 standing units that can attack, so you can extend your combos to potentially 5 attacks. Now that sounds a lot better, but at the same time it doesn't, because Ribble is just 13k. So that's really weak for a potential multi-attack, and seeing as we don't get force markers, it's not really that great. And for some reason, I'm very confused why they didn't give this card at least a force marker, because it's all about multi-attacking with rearguards. So giving this particular grade 4 an actual force marker on the card makes more sense than anything else. And it's seen as almost every other Force Clan can accelerate their markers. Why not at least give Gear Chronicle access to some kind of potential to that? Because it's nowhere near as strong as we already seen from other clans so far. But to really explain why this card is pretty lackluster to what it can do, everything that this card can do can already be done by another card, but much better. And that card is Next Stage, because this card inherently gives you 4 attacks. but so does Next Stage, and both of them are free of cost. They don't cost Counterblast, Soul Blast, or whatsoever. And Next Stage gives you 2 Vanguard swings, which doesn't cost you cards from hand, because you discard 2, which is same as the Twin Drive that you got from Next Stage, and Chrono Jet Dragon still comes with a Twin Drive. So effectively, they cost the same amount of resources, and they both give you 4 attacks. But in Next Stage's case, you get a second Vanguard swing, which comes with a guard restrict and a lot of extra power, which is even more powerful than the 10k you get from Timeleap Dragon. So already inherently, Next Stage gives you more pressure than Timeleap Dragon ever could. But then you can say, well, Timeleap Dragon can do the combo where you can utilize Ribble to then get 5 attacks, so that should be better. But in that case, you need to have the Ribble in hand. But if you have the Ribble in hand, you can then just discard it with Next Stage to also gain access to the extra attack. So you still then generate 5 attacks. And in Next Stage's case, you also can utilize a second Ribble, so you can go up to potentially 6 attacks in a single turn. And don't forget, Next Stage rides back to the Grade 3, so you get that force marker during the battle phase, so you get more aggression out of your force markers than you could get with Timeleap Dragon. So it's already very apparent that Next Stage is basically a better Timeleap Dragon than Timeleap Dragon ever could be. So in hindsight, I would have said that this is the skill that should actually have been given to the trial deck Metallica Phoenix, because it makes a lot more sense, because this was the original skill of Metallica Phoenix. So why they went for a generic vanilla card with triple drive doesn't really make sense to me if I'm now seeing this skill, because now it was even more apparent that this skill should have been given to Metallica Phoenix. But does this mean that Timeleap Dragon is basically a useless card that cannot be utilized in the deck whatsoever? No, of course not, because this card does have use in the current Gear Chronicle deck. Yes, Next Stage might be a better card than Timeleap Dragon can ever be right now, but keep in mind, Next Stage forces you to go second if you want to utilize the card itself. So meaning, if you went first, you cannot go into Next Stage, and that means you're basically stuck. Then a card like Timeleap Dragon actually is very useful, because this is a really good going first card, because it at least gives you access to that extra offensive option before you can go into Next Stage. So this is a much better upgrade than going into triple drive Metallica Phoenix, if I'm going to be very honest. But on top of it, because this card is effectively costless and doesn't require you to be on any type of archetype card, because Next Stage still requires you to be on Chrono Jet Dragon. So if we ever go to another card that isn't Chrono Jet Dragon, and keep in mind, if we're going to get Chrono Jet Dragon G or Z ever in the future, Next Stage doesn't work with them unless they have the same skill like Vanquisher that turns their name into Chrono Jet Dragon, as Next Stage requires you to have that specific Chrono Jet Dragon on your Vanguard circle. And because Timeleap Dragon doesn't have that restriction, it opens up for more future potential, and especially if we're going to get better cards that will combo with Timeleap Dragon, because so far, a lot of the cards that we might are interested in calling with the card don't really work, because a lot of cards in Gear Chronicle are behind an unplaced from hand restriction. So if we're going to get more cards like Steam Gunner Zeit that have just a generic unplace effect, we might actually see more use for Timeleap Dragon in the future. So even though Timeleap Dragon is honestly kind of a disappointment, if I'm gonna be very honest, there is still some use for the card, and there's still a glimmer of hope for the potential of the future, depending on what's going to happen with Gear Chronicle in the Overdress era. And with that, we've basically seen the latest cards for Gear Chronicle from the Clan Selection Plus set. Now I want to know what you guys think of these new cards, because honestly I'm kind of disappointed with what we've got. I do see there is hope for them, and the Grade 1s and Grade 2s are interesting upgrades to the consistency and value engine of Gear Chronicle, but so far it doesn't really addresses the main issue of the clan, which is offensive options and the sheer lack of speed the clan has, because Gear Chronicle's relatively slow in comparison to other clans these days. So maybe we might see more combo potential in the future with a card like this, because hey, it's still Timeleap in standard, and it could open up the window of opportunity in the future, because if this is a sign for what's to come in the future for Gear Chronicle, then we might actually have some really good hope and playability for the clan very soon, because if we're going to get these type of skills on rear guards, then things might actually look quite spicy and interesting. So let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below as what we've seen and discussed today, as there is still a lot to talk about. As always, this video has been brought to you by lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Timeleap, and I see you guys in the next one!